to our very first career clinic of the semester. My name's Sharron Vogler, and I'm going to be your host today as we walk through some strategies for things that we think you should be thinking about if you are considering making a change in your career. Now, some of this change may be just something that you've been reflecting on. It's something intrinsically motivating you for a number of reasons that we're not going to get into today. Some of you may have been forced into thinking about a career pivot because of a layoff, or the market that you're in just doesn't stimulate the kind of jobs that you've been in the past. And some of you may be approaching retirement age and are thinking, what can I possibly do with my time? And so, again, I'm really excited to share some of this content with you, and I'm distracted by the waiting room. And so let's get started. Okay, the very first thing, can everybody see my slides okay?
No. There.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yep. All right, here we go. All right, so for just a second, I want everyone to think. If you need to close your eyes, you can close your eyes and think about that dream job, right? If I was a fairy godmother and I did have a magic wand and I could abracadabra this, I want you to think about what that dream job is. And I love dreaming and daydreaming because right, the sky's the limit. So if money wasn't an issue, if geographic location wasn't an issue, and you had the resources to do whatever you wanted, what would you be? And I'll start. And if you feel comfortable sharing in the chat, I would love for you to drop in the chat what your dream job would be. My dream job has never changed. I think that I would really enjoy and be really good at being a traveling food blogger. And I wanted to be a traveling food blogger way before social media was even a thing. And so it's still somewhere in my daydreams when I think about what could really sustain me and give me joy, and that would be traveling around the world and eating food and telling all the good people of the world about all this amazing food and all these great adventures that I go on. And so Patrick wants to run. You want to run a business or an organization. So you want to call the shots. And is it Anitra? Corporate communications. Corporate communications, very interesting. Anyone else feel like they're in a place where they can share? Jenny wants to help global students. Karina wants to be the president of marketing. I love it. The president of marketing. Shannon, if money wasn't a consideration, she'd want to work for a publisher, reading manuscripts and drinking great coffee while I travel. I love it, Shannon. Harry, own a client entertaining team. And adventure food and wine. I like it. Harry, we're on the same wavelength. Allison wants to be a part of a charitable nonprofit. So I also want you all to think, didn't need to do that, about, you don't have to share in the chat, some of the things that are stopping you, right? Some of the things that that cause you to either not make yourself into places and spaces where these dreams can come true, or think about ways that you could start the journey towards achieving some of those dreams. And so that's really what we're going to spend our time on today is that journey, making the bold moves to make bold moves. And I'm starting off with this quote because I think it's just very appropriate for this audience. And that is around courage, right? You have to be brave and you have to have the courage to set out on that journey. And you also have to be equipped with knowledge, right? And skills to be able to pursue them. And so we're going to talk about some of those things today. Okay, so we're going to break it down into 3 categories. We're going to talk about your needs. We're going to talk about how to narrow down some choices, and the N word, right? Network. We're going to talk about networking and how vitally important it is on not just a pursuit and a journey into a career pivot, but how important it is within our own professional development to network and build social capital really, really well. Again, my name is Sharron Vogler. I am joined today by my colleague, Mark Noonan. These are some dream jobs. I shared mine to be a traveling food blogger. That's really hard to get off the tongue. My colleague, Mark, he aspires to be a collegiate volleyball coach. And so our day jobs are a little different. We're both career advisors and professional development consultants. Now we have a variety of people on this call. Most of you are alumni from the School of Business. If you are an alum from any of our School of Business programs, and fun fact, we have 11 of them, and you need more, right? You want to unpack some of the things that you've learned today, or you're having problems, right, in this journey and trying to make some bold moves, then you would be in what I call my cohort, right? I'm the career advisor or the resource here at the School of Business that can help you continue to unpack some of these things and to help to connect you to the market. You get an appointment with me through our Coaches In sessions, and you can register for them off of our events page that stems from the School of Business website. We also send reminders every week through email and through a monthly newsletter. And so if you have any problems at any time getting an appointment, then please feel like you can reach out to me specifically, and I can make sure that you get plugged in. If you are an MBA student and you are in one of our Winston-Salem cohorts, actually there's just one Winston-Salem cohort. If you're in the Winston-Salem evening MBA program, or you're one of our online MBA students, you also are in my cohort. And so to get an appointment with me, just email me. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to share my email so that everyone has it. Mark, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and talk about all the great students that you support here at the School of Business.
Thanks, Sharron. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Excellent. So Mark Noonan, I am based in Charlotte, and colleague, and I actually work for Sharron. She is the director of the program. And my responsibility are for the Charlotte-based students, the evening MBA programs, and then the Saturday hybrid programs as well. I joined Wake Forest about 2.5 years ago, after spending about 40 years in corporate America. Most recently, I retired from Wells Fargo in April of 2021. And honestly, this is my dream job, right? So if I was going to pick my next dream job, it might be collegiate volleyball coach. But I am actually in my second career doing my dream job and love every minute of it.
We're really fortunate to have Mark as a part of our market readiness and engagement team here at the School of Business. And I echo his remarks. I absolutely love doing this work. I love doing it alongside brilliant people like Mark. And I also really enjoy working with our MBA students and our alumni and helping make meaningful connections and provide meaningful resources that help you elevate your own personal lives. So again, this is a dream job for me. I skip to work every day and I can't wait to see what kind of interesting things will come across my desk. So Mark's he's gonna kick us off, and he's got some really great things to say about some of the challenges that you need to think about as you are starting to pursue a career pivot. So Mark.
Thanks, Sharron. So let me really kick us off with how we go about greeting new students in orientation or talking to prospective students when we have open house. In the MRE space, specifically in the MBA space, we have over the years, predates me, really classified or found that students fall into one of three categories. They are either folks that want to stay with their current company and leverage their MBA to grow within that company, folks that want to stay within their current industry but want to switch companies, and then folks that want to pivot, do something, use their MBA to leverage to do something completely and totally different. And that third category, generally we find two buckets. One is an individual who knows what they want and an individual who has absolutely no idea, what they want. And those are, as you would imagine, in increasing orders of complexity, right? And so one of the things that I also talk to the incoming students about and the prospective students about is, if you're looking to make a change, right? If you're looking to make a change, think of yourself like high up in a tree canopy, hanging by two vines or two ropes, if you will. And one is representative of your career, and the other one is representative of your company, right? And if you want to make a change, say you want to go from pharmaceutical sales to be a finance professional at a major, money center bank, you can picture yourself as letting go of both of those simultaneously, right? And what happens if you're that high up and you let go of both of those ropes simultaneously, right? It can be hard, right? And it can be really, really challenging. So one of the things that we want to talk about to students about and work with students about is, how do I make those changes in increments, right? So yes, if I've already identified what I want, then how do I make those changes in increments to eventually accomplish my goal? Does that mean that I can't make, one big change all at once? No, it doesn't. It just means that it's really, really hard, right? It's challenging, right? You have to be intentional and deliberate about it, right? You have to be specific about it, and you have to have perseverance and resiliency and tenacity, right? To carry that through. What that really boils down to is transferable skills, right? How can you create a story for yourself of, I was doing pharmaceutical sales, I want to do, finance at a major money center bank. What are my transferable skills from one to the other, and how do I create that story so that I can gain the interest of a hiring manager? Just one last comment, and Sharron, and then I'll kind of stop monologuing and turn it back to you for a second, is for those of you that are hiring managers, right? And Sharron's a hiring manager, I was a hiring manager, right? I firmly believe, and this information I kind of amassed over or this opinion I came to over my career, there is no greater risk that a manager takes than hiring somebody.
Truth.
It is the single greatest risk that they take, because they don't know if that person is going to be a culture carrier or a culture killer, right? That they don't know if that person is actually going to be able to really understand the material. So hiring managers naturally gravitate towards people that they know, people that they've received recommendations for, or people that have the skill set that really closely matches the job description. So if you're moving from pharmaceutical sales and you want to move into finance at a major money center bank, and that hiring manager looks at your resume and they see, 5 years in pharmaceutical sales, but they've got 4 other people that have finance experience and have maybe an MBA with a finance concentration. If you were that hiring manager, what would you do, knowing the risk that you're taking in adding people to your staff, right? So it becomes an issue where you have to create that story, right, of transferable skills, and to find those, and we'll talk about networking a little later, and find those internal advocates that can vouch for you to a potential hiring manager.
The
Sharron?
secret sauce right there, Mark. I always love hearing Mark talk about this because it's so very it's easy to dream, right? Going back to that dream, but in reality, right, those risks that hiring managers take, they want to lower those risk factors as much as they possibly can. And in a market that we're in today, right, we're in an employer-driven market, which means that employers can wait around for the right candidates. They can, you know, it's really important that you understand that when you start making these bold moves and you start applying for jobs, if you don't have that internal referral or advocacy, or can't really tell your story using paper, a resume, or words, if you actually get in front of decision makers, it's just going to be it's going to be even more difficult. So the school is here to help you unpack some of those things and help build bridges into those connections and those advocates, so this becomes a little bit easier for you. And so if any of you were a part of our previous series about career pivots, we were so absolutely lucky to have two alumni help us put together some really good thought leadership around making career pivots. And those two individuals were Megan Spivey and Kristen Winkle-Beck. And those recordings are saved, and you can find them on our YouTube site. And if you go to YouTube and just Google Wake Forest University School of Business, it'll come up and you can go back and watch those. But they put together these three buckets to think about. And I have to give all the credit to them, because it really does boil it down, right? And make it a little bit easier to navigate. If you think about your needs, how you narrow down your choices, and then right back right to networking. And when you think about needs, you've got to think there's a lot of things that you have to reflect on, right? And very seldomly are we in a space where we find ourselves in all three, that we get all three of these things, okay? So I'm going to use myself as an example. I am from Winston-Salem. I have lived in Winston-Salem for 25 years. I grew up in a small town right outside of Winston-Salem. So this is home for me, right? Winston-Salem is home. My husband is from here. All of our parents are here. Most of our siblings, our support system is here in Winston-Salem. And when our daughter was born and when she was growing up, I did not want to move. I did not want to move around. I didn't want to move out of this space, right? Because it was really important to me that my daughter have access to all of her family in a very meaningful and intentional way. Now, I was in a place where I really didn't want to be in staffing sales anymore. I knew that it wasn't how I wanted to spend the last part of my career. And I found higher education. And I was really fortunate through a series and a very tight woven web of networking connections that I found this role here at Wake Forest. But I will say I took about a 35% pay cut to come to work here at Wake Forest. And that was 13 years ago. And because I had a husband and another source of income, right, I was able to make that move without losing too much of my lifestyle. 13 years later, right, some of those reasons that are keeping me here in Winston-Salem are no longer relevant. But I can tell you that I really don't ever want to leave higher education. I want to stay here in this industry, right? I love being a career advisor. I love it so much. I can't imagine doing anything else. But if we were to move out of Winston-Salem, I would want to make sure that I can still stay here, right, in this industry, doing what I love. And again, right, I've built a life, I've built a standard. I don't want to compromise that too much. So the salary is also something that's really important. Okay. Modality is something that's really important these days. You know, everybody got really, really comfortable with this work from anywhere. And a lot of the big firms, a lot of the big banks, a lot of the big tech companies have this return to work policy where people are now having to come back right to the office and work in this hybrid type of work modality. And then we are seeing a lot more of strictly in-person, right, roles. Another thing that you have to think about is a commute, right? How far and how much time are you willing to give up of your life to commute, right? To make sure that you're getting the great salary and in the industry and doing the things that you love. Another thing that you need to think about when you think about your needs is leadership style, right? And so if you were to leave, like this culture here at Wake Forest is, you know, a culture of autonomy, and it's a culture of growth and professional development and diversity and inclusion and it's just full of so many great things and so many great leaders. If I were to make a move outside of this organization, those would be some things that I would really want to think about, right? If I ever had to be in a place where I needed to leave Wake Forest. And then how does your purpose and your values align, right, with the organizations? We see more and more of this as a decision factor than we ever have, especially with some of our Gen Zs and is it the alpha generation? I never know what it is anymore. But they really want to be aligned with the purpose of the organization. And so you have to make sure that these things, right, are all in line. So you need to reflect on those things. And so you'll probably get to a place where, you know, you have lots and lots of choices. And so narrowing down those choices, right, is the next part of this, and reflecting on all of those things. Mark talked about transferable skills, and I think that it's really important in a career pivot to really do an inventory of your skills, right? And when I talk about skills, I'm not just talking about hard skills. Like hard skills are things that you actually can learn. If I had to learn how to code, I could learn it, right? It would be hard and I probably wouldn't be really great at it, but I could learn it, right? It's a hard skill. Soft skill analysis is a little bit more difficult, especially if you aren't as self-aware as you need to be in today's very changing markets. Okay. And so doing this skill gap analysis on your soft skills can be really challenging in a career pivot, because if you're not a natural problem solver or you don't intrinsically have this critical thinking, right, mentality, or if you're not a good collaborator, if you're more of an individual performer or individual contributor, right, it's really hard to teach you some of those things. Now they can be developed, and you absolutely have the opportunity to exercise those muscles. But as you're thinking about a career pivot, you really need to think about these skills and what you're really, really good at and what value you bring to the organization. Now we have access to some assessments here. I'm an assessment geek. I love a good assessment, but they are very directional. And a lot of people come to me, they show up to career advising appointments and they want that silver bullet, right? They want to know, tell me, wise one, career advisor at Wake Forest, what should I be? Or can I take an assessment that's going to tell me what kind of job I'm going to be really good at? And guys, that's just not how it works. But if you are interested in taking some assessments, Mark and I can help facilitate getting you access to some assessments that we like here at Wake Forest. But again, those are very directional, and they do seem to help. We're going to talk about some critical people that you need in your network. And I would say that asking for and soliciting some very tough love feedback from people that you trust would be better than any type of assessment that we can take. Mark?
Yeah, these are all 6 great points. I do want to maybe spend just a moment on the first one, reflect. Especially for folks that are looking to make a pivot to a completely different industry, but really aren't sure what that is, right? And, in addition to the assessments and in addition to the skills gap analysis, that reflection is so important to understand kind of what do you like, right? What are you good at, right? What do you enjoy? And then what are the intersections of all of those, right? And that doesn't have to be, a single point in time on a Saturday afternoon where you sit down and you kind of write out everything I'm good at. Do that over time, right? Do that over, a month or 2 months or 6 months and do it when you're working, right? What type of feedback did you get from colleagues about, what they really appreciated that you were good at, right? What did you enjoy about that particular effort or that particular, project? And over time, themes will begin to emerge, right? So Sharron has put down 6 really, really important points, but Sharron, I didn't want to kind of go past that reflect one too quickly.
No, I think it's super important. And it also, I think worth mentioning how our emotional intelligence, right, our self-awareness can play such an important role in that reflective part, right? Where knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at, knowing what gets you excited to come to work, knowing the things that don't excite you about coming to work, knowing the things that you really hate doing when you're at work, can really add to this reflective time span that you really need to invest in thinking about before you make those moves. But this will help you narrow it down. Okay, so I love a good list, and back to my food, like how are you gonna figure all this out, right? And so I love a good list. And I've made some notes here so that that this will hopefully generate some creativity in your mind as you think about this journey. And I think about some right skill gap analysis that I may have if I'm going to pursue this dream of being a traveling food blogger. And so I have 4 categories here of things that I want to learn more about. I need to learn more about blogging, right? There's actually some hard skills that are part of blogging. There's, the landscape changes every day. But these are 3 people who I know of, right? Who are really great at writing and WordPress and blogging. I also admire some people on social media that are doing some really cool things and influencing, because I think part of that whole journey is going to involve a different layer of social media. And then are there even sponsorship opportunities working with some of the big brands? And then I did note a few food bloggers that I really admire, right? And I challenge you all to get to a place of envy, right? Find people that you really envy. Like, I really want to be like that person, or I really love the kind of job I think this is about, and I want to learn more about it. And then you need to go right to the network, and you have got to be in a place of learning. I tell people this all the time. A lot of people don't like networking. Okay. You're either one of three camps. You either love it and you're a super geek about it and you're extroverted. My husband calls me an extra extrovert, right? I get a lot of energy by being around people, about connecting people and meeting new people, right? I love it so much. I actually do get to do it for a living, right? And then you have people who hate it, right? They hate to network. They think it's awkward. They don't enjoy it at all. It drains their energy pools, right? And then you have some people that are in the middle, right? Like sometimes when I'm in the mood for it, I like to do it. And there are other times where I'm really not in the mood for it, so I don't really enjoy it. I could go either way, okay? Regardless of what camp you're in, your ability to reach out to not just people you know, but people you don't know, right? To learn. Your goal is to learn. When you reach out to someone and you want to network with them or you want to connect with them so that you can learn more, approach it in a way that you're just asking for advice. Okay. If you were to come to me and you were to say, Sharron, I want to be a career coach at Wake Forest. Can you help me become a career coach at Wake Forest? I want a job doing that. Well, there are no openings on my team. I actually can't hire you, right? If there is another opening within the School of Business, I might know the hiring manager, but I don't have decision-making abilities there, right? But if you came to me and said, I really want to learn more about what it's like to work in a business school, working with business school students at Wake Forest, could you give me, I'd love to get your advice on how you got your job at Wake Forest. Well, then I can talk all day, right? I'm going to be so excited to help you learn, right, about a potential career path in higher ed. Okay. It's really important to know your story. Like Mark said earlier, right? Practice your elevator pitch or your story so that no matter what audience or whomever you're talking with, right, you make it crystal clear what you want and what you need from them and how you are going to approach it as this exchange, right? It's this two-way street. And you may not have something to offer that person right now, right? But down the road, sometime in the future, you actually may have an opportunity to help that person in some way. So really thinking of it, right, in this two-way exchange, being a connector. I think it's easy if you start with people you know, right? So that you can dust off the, dust the wheels, kick the wheels around just to kind of start to really articulate your story in a meaningful way and asking for these curious conversations instead of a job or a referral. People are more likely to say yes to that than I have no job. I need a job. Can you help me get a job? Right? That's a lot of pressure on that person, right? To help you get to that place. So really approaching this as this holistic way, right, of learning from each other, right, where it can help you, right, build that advocacy that you may need now or in the future. So I like to think of networking. People don't even like the word. We don't even use it in some of our promotional materials. When it's actually a networking event, we don't even call it networking because people are so like, they just close down. So instead of calling it networking, think of it more as building social capital. Okay. You're building this bank of knowledge. You're building this bank of advocacy, maybe mentorship, connections, right? That are going to help you maybe immediately, but definitely probably in the near or distant future. And then how do you find these people? How do you find people, right? You know people that you know, but how about people you don't know? And so we want to make sure that you have access to the Wake Network. The Wake Network will always show up for you. Pro Humanitate is at the center of everything that we're about here at Wake Forest. And so the challenge then becomes, how do you get their attention? How do you find them and how do you get their attention? And if they have time, okay, because people are busy, right? Asking for an hour of someone's time could be a little much. Start with 15 minutes. Everybody's got 15 minutes, right? And the world is a lot flatter now. You don't have to actually be in a physical location with them to have a coffee. You can easily network online through virtual, Zoom, Teams, even thus through written communications. Okay, so make sure you have access to the Wake network. Make sure your profile is up to date. And we use it every day here in alumni engagement. We use it in conjunction with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like your virtual Rolodex. And if you're not on LinkedIn and you're in some sort of job search or any kind of career pivot, I challenge you to, again, spend some more time being very intentional in the way you're showing up on LinkedIn. Also think that you can use other social media or other technology platforms. A colleague and I were just talking about Reddit, and that they're using Reddit to get a lot of helpful information about jobs and the job market and the world of business. So don't be afraid to spend a little bit of time on some of those more social networks. You'll be surprised at the amount of people that you can connect with and learn from on these platforms. And then out there in the world, right? You have people at work, right, that you can learn from. If there are people within your organization, again, that you admire, that you want to be more like, right? Get to that place of envy again and reach out. And again, just learn from one another at work. It's probably one of the best places for you to learn more about yourself than any other place that you could have access to. There are events all the time. We have School of Business events, we have virtual events, we have in-person events. You are at social gatherings, whether it's with your children's school or if you're out, enjoying, nice food at local restaurants or adult beverages. Those are actually really good places to network. When you're traveling, I've met some of the most interesting people in airport lounges and on actual airplanes. And I've had some very stimulating conversations and expanded my network by just talking to people while I'm traveling. The gym is also a really great place that you can meet people and learn from them, right? You're on this journey of learning. And then I mentioned earlier, like this is a fascinating subject for me. And there's a great article that I'll make sure that everyone has access to about people you need on your bench, right? People within your circle of influence who can help you. Mentors, either being a formal mentorship, but I think there's a lot of value in informal mentorship opportunities. They can give you that tough love feedback, right? If you have a strong relationship with someone, whether it be a colleague. I worked on a committee with someone over 30 years ago. They were the chair of the committee, and I was a part of that committee that raised money for Susan G. Komen. And that person still to this day is someone that I make sure I am constantly up to date on, right? We spend time, not every month, not every year even, of just touching base. And I know that person's going to give me the feedback that I need. And then you have sponsors, especially within your own organization, right? If you love your company and you don't want to leave your company, and there's lots of growth potential with companies that you're currently with, but you want to pivot, let's say you want to pivot out of sales into a more marketing role or a more strategic role, then you need to have sponsors within that organization who can, right, talk about you. You want to be the person that they talk about when you're not in the room. And sponsors are a really great way, right, to leverage relationships within the workplace who can promote you to the people who are making these types of decisions. Advisors are people like Mark and I. We can advise. We're like, right, we're like counselors, like, you know, people who can point you in the right direction. I think one of the things I love about my job so much is I get to help people get unstuck, right? They get into this place where they're just stuck. So advisors can be someone who really guide you and help get you out of, right, a rut, and really be someone who gets you to get to a place of action. And then you need connectors. You need people who can connect you and pass your resume along. Hopefully they get to a place, right, to be able to sponsor you. But these relationships that you're building, not just at work, but outside of work, right, they're your connectors who can help you learn things that you don't know. So think about these 4 people that you need in your network and invest. You have to invest the time, and the onus is on you to create these relationships that, again, just help build that social collateral and help build your network. Okay, so help us help you, right? We are here to assist in any way that, right, that's in our privy and in our power to do so. Mark and I are natural connectors, and so we're really excited to any opportunity to connect you to the market. And so if you are curious about a certain industry, or you're really curious about titles and functional type of roles, and you're having problems finding those people in your network, I would love to help you do that. So make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. I also, Mark and I absolutely love this book. It's called The 2-Hour Job Search. And hold on. Can y'all see the book? I can't see myself.
Leave it up.
Yeah, lift it up. The 2-Hour Job Search. It's by a guy who does what we do. He's been a career advisor at Fuqua over at Duke. And he's written this book called The 2-Hour Job Search. And it's fascinating stuff. If you're a data-driven person, you're going to love this methodology, right? And of course, it takes more than 2 hours to get a job, right? But this methodology helps you use data that then drives where you focus your time and energy. So the 2 hours are designing, right, this data-driven method that can help you move the needle a little faster. I have 15 of these books to give away. So if any of you want one of these books, I will mail it to you. The only thing that you need to do is to email me. And I'm going to put my email address here in the chat. WFU.edu. If you email me your physical address of where I can physically mail this book to you, I will do that. I also invite you all to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me here. I don't want to get out of my presentation mode here, or I would go to my LinkedIn profile, but I really would love to connect with you all. One of my pro tips I will end with is to always add a personal note when you are connecting with people. On LinkedIn, your invitation is 85% more likely to be accepted if you add a personal note. Watch for some really great programming coming up this semester. Like I said, this is the first of many. Next week, there's a session on time management and a session on well-being. Those are going to be done by people that are not me. I'm not an expert on time management in any capacity. So I will be attending that professional development opportunity. And then I've actually been a part of this wellness webinar in the past, and I can tell you, you'll walk away with some really tangible things, right, to help you get to a place, right, of balance in your work and personal life. Mark, anything else to add?
Maybe just real quick, change is hard, right? There's just no two ways about it. Change is hard. It's hard for everybody, not just hard for you. And so I'll leave you with maybe 4 words, right? One is curiosity, right? The next is deliberate. The next is intentional, right? And the last one is focused, right? The world's not going to come running to your door, right? So you have to be curious about what you want to do and be deliberate and intentional and focused about getting it done. And folks like Sharron and myself can help folks do that.
All right, we've got a few minutes. I've already gotten a couple of emails of people who want the book. I'm so excited about that. And so if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to stay around for a few minutes and answer any questions you have. With that, we will let you get back to your day and enjoy the journey.
Hey, Sharron, is it okay just to go ahead and start asking questions, or do you want us to do this in a formal way? Or
no, please, no. It's nice to meet you, Jenny.
Yeah,
what's your question?
Thank you so much for making the time and doing this. My question is, I've started doing some of this work. I'm working on my story, my elevator pitch, and where I find myself sort of getting stuck now. My historical first career was in HR. I worked in global HR for 20 plus years. Now sort of thinking about shifting and making a pivot to some sort of education work, nonprofit, higher ed, something like that. Just wondering, in terms of resume help, because that sort of feels like a really important step, obviously. Is that something you or your office can help with? I mean, I've started taking a stab at shifting things around, but is that something you can help with too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love working with alumni on their resumes. You can imagine there's a lot of people who are in the same kind of space that you are, because resumes are changing rapidly every day. Even in the last 3 years, with the increase in applicant tracking systems and using AI, we have to be very intentional. Again, one of the words of the day, right? In how we present ourselves with resume work. And so please reach out to me on email, and we can I can point you to one of our coaches in sessions. But even quicker than that, I can send you some resources that can help you think about like resumes in the modern world. There's some videos on that YouTube channel too, if you have the time to go back and watch those. But resumes are tricky today, very tricky.
Okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
Happy to help. Other questions?
Yeah, this is Jane Kane, and
Hi, Jane.
hi, I've got a question about finding sponsors, especially if you're looking for a career pivot outside of your organization. Do you have any, I don't know, words of wisdom on finding?
It's a tough one. All right, that's a tough one because like it's not a turn on, it's not a off and on, right? You can't expect people to sponsor you who don't know you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I were to spend my social collateral, right, advocating for you within Wake Forest, within this organization, I've got to really believe in you before I'm going to spend that social capital. Because what happens is that if I just do that because you're a Wake Forest, like, oh, she must be brilliant because she went to Wake Forest, right? And I say, you should give this girl a chance. Even after one conversation, if I honestly believe that, it's still, we don't know, right? So if you show up at Wake Forest and you're a disaster, then my social capital is ruined, right? Who is this person that Sharron, right, referred, right, and advocated for? I'm not going to believe anything she says the next time something comes around. And so you really need to be thinking about how much you're investing in the relationships you have now, and then finding people, right, that you don't know, but you've got to spend some time investing, right, in that relationship so they feel really good about sponsoring you.
Right.
Volunteering is an avenue you might want to think about, especially if you know what kind of organization or industry you want to get to. Volunteering on a committee where you work for free, right? Work for just the love in your heart, can be a great way to find other people that are like you, who can then maybe help sponsor you within organizations they're a part of. But that's a tough one. You can't just, right, I want a sponsor, I'll pick you as a sponsor, be my sponsor. And so it takes time to build that, that relationship. Good question.
Thank you.
Hi, Sharron and Mark. This is Karina.
Hi, Karina.
I have a question. And I know, Sharron, we already spoke of some about this, but if I don't technically know in which direction I would like to go as far as areas of an organization, whether I think that I love marketing and that I would be great at marketing, I may find along the way in the MBA program different areas that I might be good at or that I might like better than marketing. So in that case, what should my focus be? Because I would hate to focus on marketing only, find sponsors in that area, and then miss my chance to truly connect in other areas.
Mark, do you want to jump in there? She's heard me. We've already had a session together.
Oh, great. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is you have to pick a direction, right? You have to start with something, right? And you have to spend time exploring that and connecting, in those areas. And developing a sponsor in marketing, even if you don't end up going the marketing route, still doesn't hurt. And it still can be a great mutually beneficial relationship, potentially down the road. The world is in Charlotte in particular, I found it's a small world and there's a lot of people that know everybody else. And so if you've got somebody who's a very strong sponsor, even though they might be in the marketing field, right? And you get into, say, the finance field, right? They may know somebody, and that level of sponsorship that you have from that person in marketing can carry a lot of weight over to the person in finance who can help you out. So the thing is, and I had a meeting with a student earlier today who was kind of, all over the place. And what we did was we said, okay, here's 3 areas of investigation. Pick one and go down that route to its natural conclusion and see where you get. And the thing is, it's never finite, right? You can always make changes and you can always do, additional investigation in additional areas, but you have to be deliberate, at least initially, in one particular area and follow that through. Sharron, I don't know if you'd add anything to that.
I would say just being curious and paying attention to everything going around you. So in your MBA program, like connect with your cohort, even if you're not on their team or you're not in the same class with them. Like, just show up in this place of just like, I'm just really curious to learn. I had no idea that you could be a career coach when I was in college, right? And even the first 15 or 20 years of my career, I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I literally happenstanced on this. And if I would have known, right, this was a career that I could have pursued when I was younger, I would have gone all in undergrad and grad school. But again, I was just paying attention, right, to some of the things that were going around me, and asked for those curious conversations. So then I was like, oh, it's career coaching thing. That sounds like something I think I would love, right? So just kind of showing up every day and putting yourself in places and spaces, physically and virtually, where you can learn again, it'll help you pivot in a pivot, right? If you're pursuing marketing and you're like, oh, I never even knew you could do X, Y, a consultant, right? I want to learn more about what it takes to be a consultant. Then you pivot, right, and go down that journey to learn more about consulting. And so it's and it can be a long journey, especially if you don't know.
Well, thank you for your answers. I definitely agree. I need to pick two areas where I can really just put my focus on. My fear is that I will spend too much time on learning skills that I don't currently know, and whether it's marketing or some other direction. And then I come across another area like yours as a career coach that I would probably love, let's say, and then I would have to, spend even more time learning about that.
Well,
Yeah,
again,
I think
it's just
the
a
thing
part
to
of that
think about-
whole professional journey. Mark.
Yeah, I think to think about is this, this doesn't have a singular destination, right? Your career doesn't have a singular destination. There's a journey throughout, your 20, 30, 40 years of working where things ebb and flow. And what you enjoy today is not something that you may enjoy in 20 years. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So I would not, and this is hard, right? But I wouldn't get so paralyzed thinking about what could potentially be 10 or 5 or 10, 15 years down the road, and instead focus on where your passions, interests, skills, aptitude, where that lies right now, and then be curious and investigate that area now.
We're about out of
Thank you.
time, and so we will follow this session up with with an email that includes the PowerPoint deck and a link to the recording. I look forward to connecting with you all on LinkedIn, and hopefully we'll see you at another virtual session coming up and in person when those opportunities arise.